basically two kinds of rocks that have layers in them. Sometimes those rocks are metamorphic rocks, which have layers from pressure. And you can tell a metamorphic rock because the heat will mold it like clay, and the layers will usually be almost wavy, looking like paint that's been kind of streaked. Other kinds of rocks, sedimentary rocks, have layers as well. As layers of sediments, little granules of sand and crystals, start to settle on top of each other at the bottom of a riverbed, forming rocks over time. Now eventually, rivers, like the one over there, are going to cut through that rock, eroding it and washing pieces of it away, but some of it will stay. And that stuff that stays is what's exposed here. Layers of rock history, and piece by piece you can actually date these layers to see what's older, what's newer, what was around at that time, what's in the chemistry of the soil there, what kind of fossils can we find that have settled in there. And so these nice little outcrops, these areas that have been cropped out of the rock, kind of like you crop a picture, are really great for us understanding what used to be in this area of the world at various points of time. Hey guys, you can take a look at the waterfall behind me and the sand that's there. This shows you kind of three stages of the water cycle. Behind me, you've got runoff, where the river is carrying any sediments at the bottom of the river. Then you've got the erosion that's taking place at the end of the river. You can kind of see that the rock layers there are kind of looking almost like shaped like clay, a little bit flat, a little bit curved. And that's because that force of the water and the friction of it running against it is carrying little tiny bits of rock with it every single time it passes by. Over millions of years, sometimes just thousands of years, depending on how fast it goes, those will land down here. And you can see where a lot of those sediments have been deposited at the bottom as a little beach. A lot of those sediments will eventually flow into skeletons of fish and plants and things like that and form fossils as well. And those fossils, because they're made of those sediments, we call that sedimentary rock. I am totally out of breath, but here I am standing under yet another arch. This is called the double arch because, and I'll see if I can get a good view of it, above that arch is the second arch. Crazy. The weird thing is this must have been carved a long time ago because, and I'm looking backwards as I walk because it'd be stupid not to, you can see the ravine goes really far down and the tops of these landscapes are really far across. So everything here, the kind of flat part, the plateaus, that would have been the landscape on its own at one point, totally flat. And then rivers running through it, from glaciers melting further to the north as the ice age ended. For thousands and thousands of years, those rivers would have run through that landscape, dissolving any rock that was easily dissolved in water, cutting larger and larger holes. Trees would grow, roots would start to cut holes, animals would burrow, start to cut holes. Rock continues to break down, and so you can get a massive arch like this, so high up, and a massive ravine behind us between the ridges. These holes in the rock behind me dissolve depending on what kind of material the rock is made of. Sometimes rock has a lot of different minerals in it, sometimes sand, sometimes carbon, calcium. And so if certain kinds of water can dissolve parts of the rock, it'll eventually carve holes into the rock, making almost these like micro caves. And so these are the holes where those would spill out of. When you have an entire landscape that's like this, we call it karst. And karst has lots of caves and sinkholes and all kinds of stuff that make it really fun to drive in, but also create a lot of homes for small mammals and bats and other things that need to burrow in small holes like this.